Great. Will you take it?
Hello everyone.
Hi.
So happy to be here. My reading tonight is dedicated to Juliana Sparr and David Book. I wish to provide the backstory for Demented Panda, the star of their forthcoming Army of Lovers collaboration. Thank you so much to Andrew and to all the organisers. Architecture and Psychosis, Notebook Decompressions, World Association of Cultural Psychiatry, Congress 3, London 2012, for BAN. 1. The effect of the built environment, prisons/neighbourhood structures, on rates of effective and reactive psychosis. Is the patient an ultra-rapid CYP2D6 metabolizer? Why is accountability more often undiminished and less often diminished in the black and ethnic minority populations? A black man, citizen, or black man from other part of Europe, non-citizen, or black African man, citizen or non-citizen, is 3 times more likely to be indicted of a crime. Similarly, why is compulsory admission to a psychiatric facility 6% versus 2.6% in the local white population? What if a patient has a decreased capacity to process certain compulsory medications? See BME populations, also CYP2D6 allele frequency in Curacao. Who assesses the pretrial reports that might result in compulsory admission to a psychiatric facility? Sing 2007, British Journal of Psychiatry, BME patients disproportionately detained under the Mental Health Act. See the killing of Jonathan Zito by Christopher Kumis on the 24th of March 2009. Track Kumis care history and diagnosis. Consider misdiagnosis, discrimination, differences in illness expression as related to higher psychosis rates in BME populations. The extremes of the spectrum are increasing. The beautiful, extremely young Dutch psychiatrist in an ill-fitting, pale yellow linen suit, who starts to sweat as he shouts this last thing out, just before his study of the Dutch prison system and an analysis of the psychosis rates of the Dutch native, Turkish, Moroccan, Surinamese, Antillean, and other non-Western populations, gets the biggest takedown of the conference. I left the building to sit on the cemetery steps. This is the Novo Cemetery, an early immigrant Spanish and Portuguese Jewish cemetery in Mile End, surrounded now by the campus buildings of Queen Mary's College. My mother used to teach art, music and poetry in primary schools almost entirely comprised of non-native children, both in Mile End and in Bethnal Green. She'd wake at 4 a.m. to make the unleavened dough for our evening chapatis. Then in tennis shoes, a sari, and a black and white fake fur coat, she'd commute on the Metropolitan line to Liverpool Street, where she'd change to the Central Line. Her nickname was Demented Panda, because of what she wore, who she was, her height, her weight, her hands. 2. The plaques are pristine. They are made of a milky, hygienic marble. The medical building glitters in the pale silver rain coming off the Thames, a non-wave evaporation. Hockney's California transposed to a London afternoon. From the hospital, I went to the Tate and saw the Hockney. My friend once saw Hockney unloading his paintings from the back of a car in Santa Barbara, outside the Art Museum. It was pouring with rain. I pushed open a gate and walked down to the Thames, afraid to slip, yet enchanted by its roaring waves. The Thames is a tidal river. It is pewter, slate, violet, all the colours of the top-down world. From the Thames I went back to the hospital. Hospitals refract their contents. They are not built to retain illnesses, but to dispel them. Document the corridor, cure the corridor. Hockney elevates, then sections, the medical building, an activity that also gives intense pleasure. To whom? So love the pink blank sky and the palms. Cobra notes for Ban. I want a literature that is not made from literature. A girl walks home in the first minutes of a race riot, before it might even be called that. The sound of breaking glass as equidistant, as happening or coming from the street and from her home. What loops the ivy asphalt glass girl combinations are braided as it goes. I think too of the curved passing sound that has no fixed source. In a literature, what would happen to the girl? She fails to orient, to take another step. I understand. She is collapsing to her knees, then to her side in a sovereign position. Notes for Ban, 2012. A year of sacrifice and rupture. Murderous roses blossoming in the garden of immigrant families with money problems, citizens with a stash, and so on. Eat a petal and die. Die if you have to. See end date, serpent gate, hole. I myself swivel around and crouch at the slightest unexpected sound. When she turned her face to the ivy, I saw a cube of bunched up foil propped between the vines. Posture made a circuit from the ivy to her face, the London street a tiny jungle, dark blue and shimmering a bit from the gold-brown tights she was wearing beneath her skirt. A girl stops walking and lies down on the street in the opening scene of a riot. Why? At points it rains, in a novel that no one writes or thinks of writing. The rain falls in lines and dots upon her. In the loose genetics of what makes this street real, the freezing cold vibrating weather sweeping through southeast England at 4 p.m. on an April afternoon is very painful. Sometimes there is a day, and sometimes there is a day reduced to its symbolic elements. A cup of broken glass, the Queen's portrait on a thin bronze coin, dosage, rain. This is why a raindrop indents the concrete with atomic intensity. This is why the dark green glossy leaves of the ivy are so green, multiple kinds of green, as night falls on the skirt, the outskirts of London, les banlieues. Ban en banlieue, suburban, a puff of diesel fumes on an orbital road. The country outside London, with its old parks and labyrinths of rhododendron or azalea, futile and tropical pinks, in a near constant downpour of green, black and silver rain. In the forest surrounding London, a light ice falls through the trees, like glitter. A snake, aspen-coloured, bright yellow with green stripes, slips through the bracken. Its pink eyes open, and black diamond-shaped irises blinking on then off. In frozen time, ancient beings emerge with the force of reptiles. Have some water. In the forest, time and weather are so mixed up, a trope of bedtime stories, bottom-up processing, need. I need the snake to stop the news. This is the news. The girl's body is dressed and set, still trembling, upon a rise in the forest. There are stars, now it's night. Time is coming on hard. The snake slips over her leg, her brown ankle. She's wearing shoes, maroon patent leather shoes, with a low heel and 3 slim buckles, but no socks. Whoever dressed her was in a hurry. Imagine the scene, a forest outside of London at 10 p.m. An April snowfall, the ground still coppery gold. A snake has escaped from time, a suburban aquarium. Volatile, starving, it senses a parallel self, the girl's body emitting a solar heat, absorbed in the course of a lifetime, but now discharging, pushing off. Without thought, below thought, it moves towards her through the rusted trees. What is ban? Ban is a mixture of dog shit and bitumen ash scraped off the soles of running shoes, Puma, Reebok, Adidas. Looping the city, ban is a warp of smoke. To summarise, she is the parts of something remixed as air. Integral, rigid air, circa 1972 to 1979. She's a girl, a black girl in an era when in solidarity, Caribbean and Asian Brits, self-defined as black, a black brown girl, encountered in the earliest hour of a race riot, or what will become one by nightfall, April the 23rd, 1979. By morning, anti-Nazi campaigner Blair Peach will be dead. It's in this sense a real day. The ban is unreal. She's both dead and never living, the part that is of life that is never given an existence. What, for example, is born in England but is never, not even on a cloudy day, English? Under what conditions is a birth not recognized as a birth? Answer, ban. And from ban, banlieue, the former hunting grounds of King Henry VIII, earth mounds, oaks split into several parts by a late century lightning storm. These suburbs are in places leafy and industrial. The Nestle factory spools a milky lilac effluent into the Grand Union Canal that runs between Hayes and Southall. Ban is 9, Ban is 7, Ban is 10. Ban is a girl walking home from school just as a protest starts to escalate. Pausing at the corner of the Uxbridge Road, she hears something, the far-off sound of breaking glass. Is it coming from her home, or is it coming from the street's distant clamour? Faced with these two sources of a sound she instinctively links to violence, the potential of violent acts, Ban lies down. She falls to the ground. This is syntax. Psychotic, fecal, neural, wild. The auto-sacrifice begins, endures the night, never stops, goes on. As even more time passes, as the image or instinct to form this image desiccates, I prop a mirror, then another on the ground for Ban. A cyclical and artificial light falls upon her in turn. Pink, gold, amber, then pink again. Do the mirrors deflect evil? Perhaps they protect her from a horde of boys with shaved heads, or perhaps they illuminate in strings of weak light the part of the scene when these boys finally arrive. The left hand covered in a light blue ash. The ash is analgesic, data, soot, though when it rains, Ban becomes lucine, a bulk, a network of dirty lines that channel starlight, presence, boots. Someone walks towards her, for example, then around her, then away. I want to lie down in the place I am from, where this work is set, on the street I am from. In the rain, next to the ivy, as I did, on the border of Pakistan and India, the two Punjabs. Nobody sees someone do this. I want to feel it in my body, the root cause. Inversions for Ban. To ban someone is to say that no one may harm him, a Agamben. A monstrous hybrid of human and animal, divided between the forest and the city, ban. To be banned from the city and thus en banlieue, a part of the perimeter. In this sense, to study the place where the city dissolves is to study the wolf. Is this why some of my best friends have come from the peninsula of Long Island? To ban, to sentence. To abandon is thus to write prose, already dead, nude, a wolf's head upon a form. The form is the body in the most generic way I could possibly use that word. The nude body spills colour. Blue nude, green nude, the nudes of prehistory in a pool of chalk in an Ajanta cave. Agamben's thought, familiar to me already, from the exchange of Arjun and Krishan on the battlefield. I should stop writing now. What do the wolf and the schizophrenic have in common? Here, extreme snow, I mean fire. The extreme snow makes me neutral about the strangeness of this first intact fragment of Ban, a novel of the race riot, Ban, nude studies, charcoal marks wired to the mouth of a pig, a boar. Some of the work is set in the outlying wooded regions of Greater London, where King Henry VIII had his hunting grounds. As a girl, I would lie down in my coat and trousers in the snow upon an embankment of earth, engineered centuries before to keep the meat in. I wanted to write a book that was like lying down, that took some time to write, that kept forgetting something, that took a diversion from which it never returned. I wanted to write a book on a butcher's table in New Delhi, The shop front open to the street, a bare light bulb swinging above the table, and next to it a hook. Swinging from that hook in the window, I wanted to write a book. Inverted, corrupted, exposed to view. A person writes a book in their free time, calling that time what they want to call it. I wanted to write a book about England. I wanted to write a book about lying on the floor of England. I wanted to return to England. I went to England. I was born in England. I lived in a house in England until I was 30 years old. My parents were English. I was English. After 1984, we all shared the same nationality, but by 2006 or 7, this was no longer true. Between September 2010 and late December 2012, I studied a piece of the earth, no longer or wider than a girl's body, prone upon it, the asphalt, as dusk fell, violet, amber, and filled with the reflected lights coming from the discs, the tiny mirrors positioned in the ivy as she slept. On a balcony, the asphalt's green stars, the shed parts of a ragged elm come spring. Ban is a portal, a vortex, a curl, a mixture of clockwise and anti-clockwise movements in the sky above the street. I study the vapor as it rises, accumulates, then starts to move. How a brisk wind organizes the soot or casings and bits of silver bark into whirls. Is zinc an element? It's a sheen. Spread it on the ankle of Ban. Is there a copper wire? Is there a groin? Make a mask for Ban.